I can't believe that we're actually making this video now. Feels like we should have made it ages ago. Lloyd and I lived together in Australia for 7 to 8 years before we started our digital nomad journeys. Obviously, Lloyd grew up there, so he knows way more about the country than I do, but I, luckily, being with him, got to see the country more like a local and got to experience things that I would not have got to experience had I just seen the country on my own. We lived in many different cities and beach towns during our time that we were in Australia, so we saw so much of the country, and we drove up and back from Melbourne to Queensland many times. And saw so much along the way. We even lived in a caravan for a little bit of time. So we've seen a lot of unique and different spots of the country that a lot of people maybe you haven't even heard of before.
And we should add that we did most of this with our dog Bear.
So we're actually hoping to plan a trip back to Australia once our baby is born. So this is sort of why I started looking on YouTube, and I saw that there's not a whole lot of helpful local tips. There's a lot of just general advice on how to see Australia. So I thought we'd put together our top 10 list of the best places that you should visit, as well as our favorite restaurants or reasons why we think you should go there, because we have a lot of really amazing memories and times that we spent in this beautiful country. But make sure you stick around to the end of the video, because we're also going to give you our #1 place that is our least favorite place and we would probably recommend not visiting for your first time in the country. If you're new here, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Now let's get into the video. So number 10 on the list is Hamilton Island.
Okay, so Hamilton Island is a really unique place in Australia because there's no cars on the island at all. You actually drive around in golf carts, which is really cool. It's a really small island located on the Great Barrier Reef. So if you're into scuba diving or snorkeling or even fishing, it's an amazing place to travel to. I actually got to spend quite a bit of time there when I was younger because my sister worked there for an entire, I think, 1 year, and I went and visited her for a few weeks, so I got to sort of live there as a local. And it's such a unique place in Australia that I don't think many people get to. It's quite easy to get to. You just get a boat from Airlie Beach, which is in Queensland. And I would suggest anyone who works in hospitality, or even if you don't, to go there and do a working holiday there. It's a great place to go as a tourist, but it's not necessarily cheap. If you do want to go, there's tons of job opportunities every season there. It's usually in hospitality or in tourism. So if you want to go to Australia and do a working holiday, I'd probably block out a couple of months to go to Hamilton Island because it's such a cool spot.
So I actually moved to Australia because I was doing a working holiday visa. That's what I did for my starting. I did have the intention of doing the rural work and all that you can do in different parts of Australia, so you can extend your visa to get a 2-year visa. Those rules are kind of always changing. I'm not exactly sure or up to date with what they are at the moment, but I do highly recommend, if you've been thinking about doing a working holiday visa and you haven't traveled yet, Australia is the best place to start. Just especially for a Canadian. I had never traveled anywhere before. Really, I'd been to Mexico for a family vacation, but never traveled on my own. And I booked the cheapest flight I possibly could. I had 5 layovers. It was absolute hell, but once I got there, that working holiday changed my life and changed my perspective on life. So if you're thinking about it, do it.
Would you say Australia is an upside down version of Canada or America?
Yeah, I just think it's an easy step into a different world. There's so many similarities between Canada and Australia and US, but there's also a lot of differences as well. So you're getting different culture and your guys' weird way of talking.
Yeah, when you first get to Australia, it's probably going to take you, I'd say, a few weeks to get used to everyone's accents and understand everyone. How long did it take you?
It took me a while. Even when we were dating, I couldn't understand what you were saying. Number 9 is Sydney.
Well, Sydney's an obvious choice because, number 1, it's Australia's biggest city, and I think it has the most tourist attractions. Generally, everyone I speak to who's visiting Australia, the first place they go to is Sydney, right?
Yeah.
But I think most people tend to go to Sydney and they go to the usual place like Bondi Beach, which is great, don't get me wrong, you got to visit Bondi Beach.
It's beautiful, yeah.
But I'd recommend heading to both Cronulla Shire, which is south of Sydney, and then the northern beaches of Manly. And you can get a ferry from Sydney CBD over to Manly Northern Beaches, and it's a really good ferry trip actually. And it's a little bit less touristy, but you're gonna find amazing beaches, awesome cafes and restaurants, like really good food, and like boardwalks, and just everyone's out and about doing stuff all day, every day. And it's a little bit less of a tourist trap as far as in compared to staying on Bondi Beach. So I'd recommend checking out Cronulla Shire and Northern Beaches of Manly. Plus, my two best friends from Sydney live in Cronulla and Manly. That's mostly whenever we visit Sydney, we go to Cronulla and Manly, and we have an awesome time.
People that have lived in a city for a really long time obviously know the best locations to live in usually. So yeah, we're lucky with that. Cronulla RSL also has I think that's what it was. Cronulla RSL had the most incredible views of the ocean. Definitely recommend checking that out if you head towards Cronulla.
If you don't know what RSL is, if you're not from Australia, it stands for Return Services League. So it's like, it was a place where army veterans would go and they would have like a drink and have like a community, but every single town in Australia has their own RSL, and it's like the local pub. And it's especially good on Anzac Day. If you're there around April on Anzac Day, go to any RSL and you're gonna have an amazing time, but especially in Sydney, I think.
Yes, for sure. Number 8 is Merimbula.
So if you're gonna be doing a road trip and you're starting, let's say in Melbourne, which is probably where I'd recommend to start, we'll get to Melbourne later, and you're gonna drive up the coast, we definitely recommend stopping halfway in Merimbula. It's a quiet sort of beach fishing town. There's a lot of surfing, stand-up paddleboarding. It's like a real Aussie town that hasn't been influenced by any outside cultures too much.
Not commercialized, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there is a McDonald's there, isn't there?
I think that's all there is. There isn't much though. It's a lot of small, locally owned businesses. Actually, Lloyd's Sisters Cafe is just about 30 minutes outside of Merimbula in a little place called Candelo, and it's a really cute place. It's worth making the drive out. They have an amazing Sunday market, I think every month. Definitely worth checking it out. It's called Candelo Cafe and General Store. So if you're in the area, say that we sent you.
Yeah, there's tons of little brew pubs and restaurants, and it's just the main spot where people stop when they're driving between Melbourne and Sydney, and you can easily miss it, but make sure you stop off in Candelo or Merimbula, or both. They're right next to each other.
Also Tathra, not far down the road, and Pambula, both worth checking out. The cafe culture in that area is really unique. People love their coffee in Australia, but especially in this area, you can see that people are really passionate about it. So if you're a coffee lover, this is the spot to go.
But if you're driving around anywhere around Merimbula, pretty much anywhere between Melbourne and Sydney, watch out for kangaroos. And that might sound like a cliche to people from America or Canada, but literally there are thousands of kangaroos, and if one jumps out in front of your car and you hit it, your car's going to be totaled. So be careful.
So number 7 is the Snowy Mountains. And that might sound a little bit weird in Australia, but just hear us out. This is a pretty unique place to visit.
Yeah, so when I first started traveling, and as soon as you tell someone you're Australian, they ask if you surf, and people were really surprised when I told them I grew up snowboarding, not surfing. And that's because there's actually pretty decent mountains in Australia, and like, I'm not comparing them to Canada or America or even Europe, but we do have a lot of mountains, and the Snowy Mountains region is probably the best area to visit, especially if you're somebody who likes skiing or snowboarding. It's mostly like pretty small runs. Don't expect to be doing like huge backcountry runs. There's a lot of time spent on lifts, but if you're into riding like park, snowboarding park or skiing park, then you're gonna have the time of your life. In fact, believe it or not, Australia has had a female and male gold medalist in the Winter Olympics for snowboarding halfpipe, which just goes to show that we do have our own snowboarding and skiing scene. Their home mountain is Perisher, which is the one we recommend going to. We've spent probably 3 winters there.
Yeah.
My sister lived there for like 10 years, so I've spent a lot of time visiting there. And again, if you're on a working holiday, I would really recommend going and doing a winter season in Perisher. It's pretty short, it's like 3 months, maybe 4 months, but it's gonna be people from all over the world, and there's so many pubs and bars and good restaurants. And then the main town at the bottom of Perisher is Jindabyne, which is an awesome town all year round, even in summer. Like, there's great fishing, there's a big lake. You really can't go wrong, and it's, again, on the way through from Melbourne to Sydney.
Number 6 is Yamba. So this is sort of a weird place to put on here, but we've just had a really good experience and spent a bit of time in Yamba, so I wanted to put it on the list because it's really, really beautiful there and just really nice for like a weekend escape or just to spend sort of a shorter amount of time in. One year I got Lloyd an Airbnb for his birthday, and we just had a really great time in the town. It's pretty simple. There's really good restaurants there. The beach is really nice, and it's a good, real simple way for learning how to surf. I think it's a common place for people to go and learn how to surf. There's also a really, really cool pub. It might be the hotel, or is it the RSL? That's up on top of the hill overlooking the entire ocean. It's the most incredible view ever.
I think it's the RSL.
Yeah, we'll pop it on the screen.
Quick tip, if you're going to any town in Australia, go to the RSL.
Yeah.
That just goes without saying.
We've been to a few for sure. So Yamba is sort of on the border of Queensland and New South Wales. It's in that area. So it's good if you're, you know, close to Brisbane, Gold Coast, those areas, Byron. You can hit Yamba maybe for a weekend trip. Definitely recommend checking it out. Number 5 is Noosa Heads.
Noosa Heads. Noosa has probably got the most beautiful beach in Australia, I would say.
It's definitely up there, and I think it's like the #1 place that Australians do their like honeymoons or weddings, just, you know, baby moons, that type of like a special weekend away. It's so beautiful there.
Yeah, it's probably every Australian's favorite holiday spot. It does get very busy during holidays and weekends though, so if you're driving there, you're gonna struggle to find a car park.
Yeah, get up early to get any parking in Noosa for sure.
But it has one of the best beginner waves if you're learning to surf, but again, it does get really busy. It's kind of the same for everywhere in Australia. We have the best surf, but there's just so many people out there. But if you're on a beginner wave and you're on a longboard and you're getting a surf lesson, it doesn't really matter how busy it is, you're still gonna have fun.
Yeah. There's epic camping around Noosa as well. You can do, I believe, right on the sand on the beach. If you have a 4x4, you can do that. We also I think we just camped off the shore.
Yeah, we just drove to a campsite and we were like literally steps away from the beach. We woke up one morning and there was a kangaroo standing right outside our tent.
Yeah.
There's epic fishing there. Like Noosa Heads, you can check out the whole area of Noosa, which is located in the Sunshine Coast. Which is just north of the Gold Coast. We recommend though, if you're gonna go to the Sunshine Coast, like Noosa is the best town in the whole area.
Yeah,
right?
And you definitely have to get fish and chips when you're there. Kind of all over Australia actually, get fish and chips.
Okay, so we know a lot of you guys watch our videos like this to get inspiration for your own trips, but instead of having to frenetically jot down all of the recommendations that we make in these videos, we've discovered a much easier way for you to be able to follow in our footsteps. So we've actually partnered with a company called Mindtrip. Mindtrip is an AI-powered travel platform that will show you recommendations for many of the trips posted to our YouTube channel, just like this one. So all you have to do is click the link down below in this video and it'll take you straight over to Mindtrip, where it'll show you all of the recommendations that we've listed here, along with photos, maps and reviews. And you can customize your own trip by favoriting what you like and adding it to your trip plan. You can even share your trip with your friends and invite them to plan the trip with you. It's a pretty awesome tool, and also it's so easy to use, so check it out down below. We think you're gonna love it. Click the link and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Number 4 is Great Ocean Road. Our Great Ocean Road trip.
That was our first ever camping trip.
We were so bad at camping. Our air mattress deflated. I think the tent didn't work. We weren't able to get a campsite because it was Easter.
We went on Easter weekend without booking a campsite. Yeah, that was pretty dumb.
We pretty much like ended up sleeping in the car, but it was, yeah, we just started dating at that point. It was a good test, I think. We still had a really great time.
Yeah, but if you're going to Melbourne, then you can't skip the Great Ocean Road. It is literally the best road trip you can do. It only takes a couple of hours, like maybe if you do the whole thing, like 3 or 4 hours. But you can start down in Torquay, which is where Bells Beach is, which is where they hold like the biggest surf comp of the year every year around Easter, April. Mm-hmm. But it's a very busy time to go if you do go that time of year. I probably suggest going maybe sometime not so busy. Start in Torquay and then you can drive all the way to Lorne. You definitely have to stop off in Lorne. How do you say it?
Lorne.
And then you're going to want to stop at the Otway National Park where you can do camping. You can do camping pretty much all along Great Ocean Road, and also Anglesea is a good stop as well. So I'd suggest going for like a week road trip on Great Ocean Road and just camp. Camp anywhere. There's heaps of campsites, and also look out for koalas. There's tons of koalas in the trees. You'll be driving along and see like a bus pulled over with Asian tourists and they're all taking photos of the trees. It's because there's koalas in the trees.
Yeah, it's a good way to spot them.
Again, Lorne, RSL, gotta hit that one up.
Number 3 is the Gold Coast.
The Goldie.
How long did we live on the Gold Coast?
We lived there together for 3 years, I think.
And then you did a few.
I lived for a couple of years before that. So I've spent like probably 5 years on the Gold Coast. I'd consider it like, I grew up in Melbourne, but the Gold Coast is where I lived as an adult. So it's sort of like my second home, and there's a reason I lived there for so long. It's absolutely amazing. You've got the longest stretch of white sand beach, but it's positioned, like the city is positioned right on the beach. So all the restaurants and hotels and pubs and everything is right on the beach, and it's got epic surf everywhere. Like there's a really cool vibe to the Gold Coast. It's kind of like, it's a mix between like Miami and LA, isn't it? Yeah,
I was really taken back by how close the city was to the ocean. I'd never seen that before, and how you can see like the full cityscape of Gold Coast from one end to the other. One of our favorite suburbs is Coolangatta. You can see the full cityscape from the beach. It's just incredible, and the sunsets there are breathtaking.
Yeah, there's no bad time to go to the Gold Coast. Like in summer, it's pretty hot, and you do get a little bit of rain in the afternoon because it's tropical climate, but it's nothing like too bad. And then in winter, it's like 22 degrees and sunny every single day. So you could go there any time of year and have a good time. Burleigh Heads.
That's where we lived. We spent most of our time in Burleigh. On a Friday afternoon, we recommend heading up to Burleigh Hill. Just get a blanket out. People seem to bring like an esky or a cooler, depending what country you're from, and just set up a picnic and watch the sunset from there, or watch people surf. Sorry, it's Burleigh Hill or Burleigh Point. And you can watch the surfers from there. We did that pretty much every weekend for a while. We also found ourselves on weekends driving down to Coolangatta. That's an easy surf wave, and where a lot of the like the Quicksilver Pro and those type of surf competitions are held as well.
The main town of the Gold Coast is called Surfers Paradise for a reason. Like it literally is Surfers Paradise. You can surf along the whole city. Like everywhere is a good surf spot. Like I said, you can go there any time of year, you can get good surf and good weather.
We prefer the southern part of the Gold Coast as opposed to the northern part towards Brisbane. We weren't huge fans of that area. I actually went to college in that area, and just didn't wow me as much as the southern part, but that's just our preference.
Also, if you're going to the Gold Coast, I'd say have a try at barefoot bowls. If you don't know what it is, look it up. It's like lawn bowls, but it's made for like younger people.
Yeah, it's like bocce kind of as well.
You guys don't have bowls in?
No, yeah, so I'm trying to give like a better example. It's more like bocce, but the balls like spin sideways kind of.
We'll put some B-roll over the top of this so you know what we're talking about.
All right, number 2 is Melbourne.
Melbourne?
Melbourne.
If it was up to me, this would probably be number 1. because it's my hometown. It's where I grew up. I absolutely love it.
It's where my Oz journey started as well.
Yeah, whenever somebody tells me they're going to Australia, the first thing I say is you have to go to Melbourne. I don't think it gets quite the same recognition as Sydney because it doesn't have like the tourist attractions, but it has so much culture. Like the food and coffee culture there is incredible, as well as the art scene. It's got a huge music scene as well. And then the sports there, like we have the Melbourne Cup, which is the biggest horse race in the world, I think. The F1 Grand Prix, the MotoGP, the Australian Open, which is the tennis Grand Slam. And then of course you got the MCG, which is like the mecca of sports in Australia, which is located in Richmond. I took Mandy there for like one of our first dates actually.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was so good.
If you can go during footy season, I would highly recommend going to the MCG and watching a game, and then going to one of the pubs across the road in Richmond, which these pubs have been there for like 200 years, and there's so many big Australian bands that have like started their careers there, and there's so much history with the sport and the music, so check out Richmond. Also, definitely go to St Kilda Beach. It's probably my favourite area in Melbourne. Go and sit on the beach and eat some fish and chips, have a beer. And if you want to do some nightlife and some shopping, head over to South Yarra and to Chapel Street.
We stayed at Nomads Hostel, I believe it was called, or Base. I think they've changed the name maybe, in St Kilda. Pretty affordable, not that bad of a room, and we were able to see a lot of the city. It's just a really good area to stay in, so we recommend that one if you're on a budget.
But it does get a bit cold in winter in Melbourne. I mean, not compared to Europe or North America, but it does get below like 7 or 8 degrees, which is pretty cold.
I had no idea that it got cold in Australia. I'm still embarrassed to admit this. When I was packing, and I had met Lloyd before I was meant to be leaving there, and I had not packed a jacket, even a long sleeve. I was like, I'm just going to Melbourne with bikinis and shorts. So yeah, it gets actually quite cold, like chilly for even a Canadian. So yeah, pack warm clothes if you're going in winter.
Very hot in summer, very cold in winter. Also, hit up the Mornington Peninsula if you're in Melbourne and go to Portsea. The Portsea pub is the best pub in Australia, in my opinion.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And the hot springs are actually really nice in the Mornington Peninsula. It's a really nice area. We spent quite a bit of time around there. Germana, Rosebud, just the whole drive from like in the city down to the Mornington Peninsula. We used to drive along the beach.
You threw up on the way down there.
Oh yeah. You outed me. I was so sick after my 5 layovers and not sleeping for, I don't even know how long it took me to get to Australia from Vancouver, but definitely was dehydrated and I threw up on the drive. We only knew each other for 3 weeks at that point.
Yeah.
And you stayed with me.
It's good.
Number 1 is Byron Bay. So this was kind of hard for us to decide between Melbourne and Byron, but ultimately we settled on Byron because that's where we were when we left Oz last. I think it's probably most fresh in our minds, and we have so many good memories of it, and there's a reason that so many people choose to visit and live there because it's a pretty incredible part of the world.
Honestly, probably half the people who live there grew up in Melbourne.
Yeah, yeah, probably. We lived actually in Suffolk Park while we were living there, very close to the beach. The lifestyle is actually quite similar to what we're living now here in Thailand. Just very coastal, laid back, sort of hippie. There's a lot of like natural therapy, yoga. I love that stuff, so I was in heaven. I loved living in Byron. There's also a really cool place called Merimbula that's not far away. Even more alternative and natural than that of Byron. You can head to one of the really nice spas called Kiva Spa. They have beautiful baths for you to use there. You can get a massage. They even have a stone sauna for you to use there. It was pretty amazing. Byron's honestly just a really good place for backpackers. I think it's getting a little bit more expensive. It already was pretty expensive, but there was a ton of hostels there to stay at, so many to choose from, and just a great place to meet people as well.
Yeah, Byron for so many years was just a quiet little hippie town, and then it became like everybody's favorite holiday spot. They actually have 2 music festivals on every year, Blues Fest and Splendor in the Grass, which is a big reason why everyone used to visit. And it just exploded off over the last, I would say, 10 years, which is good and bad because like housing prices have probably quadrupled, and it's gotten a lot busy. It's almost turned into like the Hollywood of Australia. It's like where influencers and celebrities always have homes, and you run into like famous people there. And the town itself though still has its like hippie vibe to it. It's a mix of the people who have moved from either Sydney or Melbourne, and then the people who have lived there for generations and generations, which are actually just weed farmers back in the day.
Yeah.
So it's a good mix of the new culture and the old culture. I think probably a lot of locals don't love the fact that everybody's just come and taken over the town, but it's such an awesome town.
It is.
And even though it has gotten busier and more expensive, it's probably our favourite place. And I think if we do move back to Australia one day, it'd probably be somewhere around Byron Bay.
For sure, yeah. In Suffolk Park, there is the best bakery. So if you head to that area, you have to check out the bakery. It's very good. There's also a local fruit and veg shop called Baz and Shaz, where there's a coffee cart parked out the front. Lloyd and I used to get something called an adaptogenic hot chocolate. Don't know if they're still there, but if it is, check it out because it was so good.
Chris Hemsworth used to go there.
Yeah, we'd see Chris Hemsworth. We'd be in line behind him.
It's also a like 7-day-a-week place. You can go out any night of the week and there's going to be live music at one of the pubs. I think the main pubs are like the Beach Hotel, that's the biggest one. The Railway Hotel.
Yeah, the Suffolk pub, and Miss Margarita was one of our favorite restaurants while we were there. That's worth checking out.
Northies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The Northern, yeah. Lots to do. Like you can spend a lot of time in Byron. I find a lot of people go there with the intention of just visiting and they end up staying. Yeah,
it's one of those places I think you go there just to spend like a few weeks, get a job, and then you never leave.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so that brings us now to our least favorite place that we would probably not recommend visiting, and this is only because let's say you're going on holiday or you are short on time, maybe you don't have a huge budget for going to Australia, and that would be Perth, Western Australia.
We're going to offend some people.
I know a lot of people
Perth
will be upset with us. We're not saying that Perth is a horrible place by any means.
Perth is amazing in a vacuum. Like the city itself and the beaches are awesome, but it takes like 6 hours to get there from the East Coast, which isn't cheap. And I think it's the most isolated major city in the whole world.
It definitely felt that way.
Yeah.
However, if you are someone planning to go do like a working holiday or wanting to get fly in, fly out work, something like that, that would probably be the place I'd suggest to go to. I'm not sure if that's possible for foreigners or not to get those jobs, but that's where a lot of the mining industry is. You can get a lot of like man jobs there. Lloyd did a lot of man jobs there.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a good idea if you're going to do a working holiday, go to Perth, work for a couple of months, see it, and save up some money and then do the whole East Coast. But if you're just doing a holiday to Australia, like it's too far, and I'd recommend just sticking to the East Coast because there's so much there. Yeah,
we've just seen a lot of people have that sort of on their itinerary, and I feel like it just takes up too much time out of your holiday to make all the way over there. So I'd suggest either, just doing West Coast, and then maybe you were doing a Perth and Bali would make more sense than it would to do like Perth and the East Coast of Australia, if that makes sense.
It's probably the equivalent of flying from like LA to Toronto or something.
Yeah. I also just found like Perth this will hurt people's feelings, but like compared to Melbourne and Sydney, it just didn't have a whole lot of personality to it. It kind of felt like a big hospital. Please don't hate me for saying that, but just all the houses looked quite similar, and it's just, yeah, just not a lot of personality. And I think just because we're used to seeing a bit of messy and a bit of gritty and weird stuff, that anything that's too neat and orderly is a bit weird.
It's a bit of a giant suburb.
Yeah. Yeah, which is great for families and stuff, so no hating on Perth, but yeah, that's just our suggestion. I'm glad we finally made this video. We'll make probably more updated videos about Australia when we head back for a visit to see family in the near future. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so we can continue making helpful travel content for you. As always, we will see you guys in the next one. Bye!